Welcome to season 2 of Run It Back. I'm your co-host Josh Barnett with my co-host Mateen Cleaves. Mateen, how you doing?
Oh, it's all good, baby. If you're trying to win, tap in. Let's go.
All right, we got a good one today. We have the pride of East Anchorage High School. We have Duke legend and current GM of the New Orleans Pelican, Trajan Langdon. Trajan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Appreciate it, guys, man. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to going back in history a little bit, so it should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with that history in Alaska because we think that is a pretty unique to come out of Alaska. And as we were talking about it off camera, we know that Alaska's had some dudes in the past, right? Yourself, Carlos Boozer, Mario Chalmers. But a lot of people don't necessarily think of Alaska as a hotbed for college basketball, NBA talent.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the culture, the basketball culture in Alaska.
Yeah, I think well, everybody knows it's cold and dark up there, right? So either you're playing some kind of winter sport or you're going to be inside, during the depths of winter. So basketball is a very popular sport, especially with the Native Alaskans in their towns and their little villages all across the state. I think in the bigger cities, hockey is the main sport. That's kind of obvious, but basketball is baseball you can only do for so long because of the weather and because of the light. Soccer the same. So in terms of the big sports, basketball has been a popular one. I think it was probably the best time in the history of Alaskan basketball in our years. I think we had some really good teams. I wouldn't say really good, but competitive teams. I think in our 2 years, we were probably the best team in the history of Alaskan basketball in my junior and senior year. And then, fast forward, there's been some pros that have come out of there. They just leave. That's the problem right now. The better players that come, Kamaka Hepa, who played at University of Texas, was a big time prospect. He ended up leaving. Dacian Nix, who grew up in Anchorage, he ended up leaving. JT Thor grew up in Anchorage. He ended up leaving, and they all, they'll play 1 year of high school or they'll leave before they even get to high school. So we've had some people come through there, but the problem is now these kids want to go and play against the best talent, so they end up leaving the state.
Yeah, and let me add this because in high school, man, you scored like 1 million points. Like, did you miss a shot?
Nice hesitation as Trajan Langdon gets the nick. Well, he will be knocking that down for a few years.
Like, man, dude, go ahead.
I had an aggressive coach, Mateen, man. He used to talk mess on the sidelines and just be like, yo, whoever got the mismatch 4 low, everybody on the baseline, go at him, go, and just be yelling it from the sidelines. So hey, I was motivated to go at people, man. So it was, but I had the neon green light from about halfway through my freshman year, man. I just let it ride.
And let me ask you this too: what, like, being from Alaska, did you take that personal? Because I was from a small city, and I felt like I had to prove myself every time we played against these bigger cities. So from being from Alaska, did you have pride in that and want to go out every time you played against some of these other top players around the country? Did you want to go out and kind of show and let them know that you can play on that level?
Yeah, because I think a lot of times, just like you, like they look at you like, no, he can't play. He's from Alaska. Like, where is that? Is that another country or something? I used to get that several times. Like, oh, you have a passport? Like, did you need a passport to get here? Showed their ignorance. But I'm like, oh man, okay. Oh, it's like that, huh? All right, watch this. Some of them, you could tell, when you're on the court warming up and you look at the other team and they're looking at you and they're just like, shh. You can tell from facial expressions if there's any respect or not. So it's like, all right, let me show these guys what we're about. So there was that internal motivation and created that chip on the shoulder that I had, throughout my high school career.
And when growing up in Alaska and playing, how did you work on your game? Were you an AAU guy? Were you a gym rat guy? Were you a little bit of both? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, the AAU game then wasn't what it is now, and
Sure.
So to reflect, my first AAU was 12 and under. We played in Seattle. My second one was 13 and under, but I played with a 14 and under team in Vegas. 14 and under here in actually is where I probably started getting my name out, was here in New Orleans. But when I say tournaments, it's only nationals. I didn't do any kind of regionals, obviously, because there's no teams in Alaska. Like, our Alaska team was the best in Alaska, not the best in Anchorage. Like our 12 and under was the best 12-year-olds in Alaska. And we just practiced for 3 months. That's all we did is practice, Mateen. There was no tournaments. We played in a little spring league or whatever, but we prepped for nationals for 3 to 4 months. And it was just practice. So yeah, practice, gym rat, summer league. I'd play a lot of pickup against older guys growing up. So that's basically where I got my game from.
That's like the reverse AAU now. Now it's all games. There's no practice at all.
Oh, no doubt. I was in that gym grinding. I mean, had my piece of paper with my write-ups, spin the ball out, come off a down screen, get my pivot game on from different spots. I'd be in there, just me and the ball in the rim. And that's it. I'd be in there for, that's before there's speakers up. I mean, it's quiet. There's no juice in there. It's just me and the ball pounding. So that's what I love. That's why I learned to love the game.
I can tell, man. And in the way your jump shot was so perfect. I played with Ray Allen, and Ray Allen, like you guys jump shot just was so picture perfect. So I definitely can believe that. But let me ask you this, Trey, because your McDonald's All-American team. God, you got so many great players that was on this team. And I remember playing in that McDonald's game, and that whole week you're practicing and playing against guys. Was there somebody like that would you say, well, wow, this guy is just that good? For me, it was Kobe Bryant. I mean, he made it clear that he was the best player every day. But so for you, just that whole, you can talk about the experience that week, and just was it a couple players that stood out to you?
Man, Mateen, that's a great point, man. I was the first McDonald's All-American from Alaska. So to me, that was a dream come true. We grew up watching. I had two stations that showed NBA basketball growing up. So I watched a ton of WGN with Mike and the Bulls, and watched a ton of TBS with Neek and the Hawks. That's what I grew up on, watching those two teams and watching a ton of Eastern Conference basketball. I just, the difference was like, what people don't understand is those games came on at 7:30, right? But for me, it was like 3:00. So I come home from school, and that's what I'm watching. Like right away, I'm watching Mike, I'm watching Neek right when I get home from school, man. So that was what got me going growing up. And then you hear about all these players that are in the McDonald's game, and all these players that have gone to high level D1 into the NBA that have come through those McDonald's games. So to be honored with that invitation. It was in New York City my year, and we had three guys from New York City. We had Felipe Lopez, the number one player, because AI was in jail that year, so Felipe was number one. Kareem Breed
just came off the cover of Sports Illustrated.
SI, right?
It had a lot of hype,
right. And then we had Zenit Hamilton, so we had three dudes. But the guy in practice every day. When we had I think Antoine was on the other team, but that's the guy I'd never seen before, was Antoine Walker. And that's the one I was like, man, this dude is that big and can do all this. Like this is different. Like he can see the floor, he can handle it, he can post, he can shoot it. That's the guy that stood out to me every day. And one guy that I don't think reached his potential that I played with was Willie Mitchell too. Willie was tough Detroit, in high school, man. My gosh, in high school he was a monster.
His nickname was the Truth.
The Truth. It just didn't work out at but man, like that's the guy. Another guy, big body, could do everything on the floor. So those two guys, just because of their size and skill level and toughness, were the two that really stood out to me during that week.
So you had a couple of Duke guys there that were with you, Ricky Price and Wojo, right? We're both McDonald's All-Americans that year.
The floor.
Yeah. How much, and Mateen, this can go to you as well too. How much recruiting goes on behind the scenes at those McDonald's All-American games? Like when Trajan, when you were there, was there anybody there trying to muck up everybody else's recruiting class by getting people to flip, turn, come sign on somewhere else? And Mateen, similar to you too.
Well, for me, it was different back then. Like Mateen will lead into it too, but man, it wasn't about like come with me and play. It's like wherever you're at, I'm coming to get you. Like, I'm not teaming up with you. Like, okay, if you're with me, like it was Wojo and Ricky, it was like, cool, let's rock. But like, man, other than that, it's like, yo, yeah, we'll see you. We'll see you in a little bit. And
we hadn't entered the era of buddy ball yet.
It was definitely not that. But I'll let Mateen go because his inside is going to be better there in Michigan.
Yeah, but even for me, man, it was a challenge because nobody wanted to go to Michigan State back then. Like it wasn't the cool school to go to. Now, Michigan, they had a brand. Everybody wanted to play for Michigan, but Michigan State, to be honest, I didn't even waste my time too much with it, man. Everybody thought I was crazy to go to Michigan State back then, which it ended up working out, thank God. But yeah, I'm like Trey, man. I was there. It was like you just want to kind of go prove and show to everybody, that you belong, and you got everybody that you've been reading about, hearing about. Everybody's right there, so you want to kind of just show your worth and show you belong.
I got you.
Yeah, let me ask this question too, because as far as recruiting, Trey, I know you. I mean, being as great as you were, you got recruited by everybody. Two-part question. Like, I want to know, like, besides Duke, who was it that you really strongly considered, and what coach was it hard to say no to?
Great questions, Mateen. Great questions. So a lot of people don't know this. My dad went to Stanford, got his PhD from Stanford, and I was actually born at University of Stanford Hospital. So there's the Stanford background. They had really good friends in Milpitas, which is a small little, I wouldn't say small, but it's a town in the Bay Area, if you know the Bay Area at all. So I used to go to Milpitas and spend a lot of time every summer growing up in my youth. So I went to Stanford basketball camp 4 or 5 straight years.
Wow.
So they were recruiting me, and they knew me, and they know my family. So we're talking about Mike Montgomery had the inside track on me for years. Since I was like 8th grade, he knew who I was. So then I start playing better. I start getting bigger, and he's starting to look at me like, whoa, like, and I'm like, man, if I could go to Stanford, this would be unbelievable. Then I start playing better. I go to Nike All-American camp in the summer, start getting exposure, start getting recruited. And Mike actually wanted me to reclass in the days where nobody reclassed. He wanted me to reclass up after my junior year, get my degree, and come to Stanford a year early and redshirt.
Wow.
Redshirt the year that Brevin Knight was a freshman. That's what he wanted me to do, because he didn't want me to get to my senior year. He's like, man, if this dude gets to his senior year, I'm not going to get him. And
I don't have a chance.
I don't have a chance. So that's what ended up happening. I get to the summer before my senior year, and then my last 5 actually were Duke, Stanford, Kansas dropped me because of Jared Haas, transferred there. Kentucky dropped me because Jeff Shepard went there. And then Arizona, UCLA, and actually Wake Forest was in there as well. So those were the schools. The hardest one to say, who came in really late was UNC. I was at 5-star my senior year, going into my senior year at Robert Morris, Pitt 2, and it was late in the summer. It was like, I can't remember, late July or something. And I had some pretty good games there, and they were there, and they called me. And I was pretty much down the line. I had narrowed it to 2-3 schools. And they called, Phil Ford called me. And he was just like, look, I'm calling. We have some interest. Coach Smith wants to hop on the phone. And I basically was like, Phil, man, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste Coach Smith's time. Like, it's too far down the road. There's just no way this is going to happen. That one was difficult, but I wanted to be a person of integrity. I want to be a person of my word. I didn't want to waste people's time. So saying no to Dean Smith was pretty hard.
How do you do that?
It's pretty hard. It's pretty hard.
He probably was like, "What? I've never heard no."
Yeah, right. I would.
Right,
I think
sure.
I think I would have been like, "Yeah, I got 5 minutes. I could talk to Coach Smith for a minute."
that was hard, and Lute was hard. Lute Olson in Arizona was hard because he wanted me to come on and visit for the same thing. And I was just like, Coach, man, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. And he went hard at me on the phone too. He was highly disappointed that he couldn't get me on campus, because I had heard if I get on campus, it's going to be hard to say no to Tucson. So I did not want to take that chance.
That's funny. So you end up settling for Duke. And Coach K, any great Coach K recruiting stories before you get there? How did Duke kind of suck you in?
Well, that wasn't a hard one. Actually 1990, I'm a freshman in high school. AAU team comes over to my grandmother's house, and we have a Final Four national championship watch party, and it's UNLV against Duke in the semis.
Not the good one though. Not the
good one, the blowout one. And I'm a UNLV fan at that time. Yep. Stacey Augman and Greg and Anderson Hunt, huge Anderson Hunt fan.
Yes,
for sure.
So at the time, I didn't even know where Duke was. I'm like, where is Duke? Like, what is this school? And so obviously the run of 90, 91, 92, 94, like those 3 straight years, 90, 91, 92, they get on the map. You earn the respect of, man, these dudes play hard. They compete. Like that's how I was raised in a defensive mindset. Like a lot of people think I'm all he does is shoot, but like I pressed full court in high school. I played competitive. I was, we played physical basketball every day. So that I saw that, and everybody's talking about, Duke being this preemptive white school, and I'm watching them play. I'm like, that ain't it. Like them dudes getting after it. Like that, they ain't playing pretty basketball. Them dudes getting after it. So that was the attraction to that. So they started recruiting me probably during my junior year, late sophomore year. I had a game against Oak Hill my sophomore year with Jeff McGinnis, and they were ranked top 3 in the country. We lost by like 4 points, and I had 18, 7, and 5 as a sophomore. So that's kind of what Bob Givens was at the game. That's what kind of started getting me on the map. And they started recruiting me that summer. Fast forward, my senior year, Coach K comes to a home visit, comes to the house. Obviously later, I think it was probably maybe October-ish. And obviously, it gets darker earlier in Anchorage. So he's leaving the house and the northern lights are going in the sky, the Aurora Borealis. So I don't know if you know about that up north. They're very rare all over, the Arctic Circle and in the north. And they were just glowing in the sky, pinks and blues and violets and greens. And he was just like, hey, son, that's a sign. I was like, I was already done anyway. So it's like,
you were like, no, coach, this actually happens every year. Like this is.
So that's probably the best recruiting story. I mean, the second one was when I followed that up. I go down to school. I have my official visit. Then I have my Stanford visit, I think a week or 2 weeks later. And my dad, obviously, they're going to play Notre Dame that weekend. It's going to be a huge weekend. And to my knowledge, I should say to my ignorance, my whole family was going to come with me on that Stanford visit. I didn't know. I thought it was just going to be me, like going to Duke. So he said, whatever you do, please just do not, say you're going to Duke on campus. Let's come back and talk about it. Do not commit. I was like, all right. So I get on campus, have a blast. I take off at like 5 a.m. Like 6 a.m. Coach is at the dorm that I'm staying in at 4 a.m. I wasn't expecting him to come. And he's just talking about how bad he wants me here and and how, I'm going to say how bad, how important it would be for them to get me and why. And I just looked at him, I'm like, Coach, I'm ready to commit, man. I'm here. He looked at me, he's like, you sure? I said, oh yeah, I'm sure. It's done. I'll go tell my parents. So I get back, and my dad was not very pleased with me, but I said, you told me the whole time, don't waste people's time. So I don't want to waste anybody's time anymore. So
wow.
You ready? You know, yeah, it's tough. A legal document.
I gotta ask you this, because this blew my mind, to be honest. Being recruited, okay, now they're wild on you. You're coming on campus, you're taking your visits, everybody's making sure you have a good time. Yeah. And then practice starts. Yeah. So now it's a different type of coach. I didn't have this. Yeah, it wasn't the same coach that was pretty much begging me to come to Michigan State. It was now I was just a snotty-nosed freshman. So tell me, how was that for you? Well, that coach that recruited you opposed to, now you're just a snotty-nosed freshman on campus.
As I said before, I had a really, really aggressive-minded, loud, but fair high school coach. He was 6'5", 230, get in your face, yell the whole game. Every practice is competitive. Like there's no practices off. We're going 2-on-1 at the rim. Take him down, block him, like whatever you need.
Did you play for Coach Knight in high school?
I'm telling you,
you're describing.
He looked just like him. He looked just like him, and would go at people. He would yell at people in the stands that were yelling at us or him. I mean, he would turn around and berate people. So he was an incredible coach, and he prepared me. So there wasn't much that coach could do to get me. Like he'd yell at me or whatever. We'd have tough practices. Like I had done all of that, honestly. I had tough coaching in high school, which prepared me. But to what you said, like how coach got on us was like a smart, like snide way. Like he'd say stuff like he just get under your skin. He knew he'd figure out who you were as a person, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you were sensitive to. He would say stuff to like, man, maybe we were watching film. I'm sure Coach Izzo said stuff like this too. He'd be like, yo, to a player. It's like, you're a junior and you haven't taken French yet. You might need to start working on that language. That's where you're going to be playing, son. I was like, golly. He'd do stuff like that and just be killing people.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Wow.
So like, you from Canada? They don't speak Spanish in Canada. Oh, yeah, you need to start taking Spanish next year.
Shooting 1,000 shots a night, and that's not an exaggeration. Yeah, and you guys say, well, holy mackerel, I'm working on all this stuff. Cool. Work on all that stuff. The free throw and the standstill three, you got to be able to hit.
Well, on top of the transition, you know, coming from high school to college, that first freshman year of yours was different, right? Because you came in with a big preseason ranking, if I remember right. Cherokee Parks was senior that year, and you guys are coming off the Leitner Hill Hurley legacy years that you had already spoke about, and then Coach K goes out and it's Pete Goddett, right? It comes in and coaches, and the wheels kind of fall off. And in the midst of that, you're part of one of the greatest UNC Duke games of all time, with Jeff Capel hitting the shot and Stackhouse's reverse dunk and all that stuff. Can you reflect back on what it was like going through that year then, and then now looking back 30 years later? That freshman year was like pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm sure Mateen feels the same way in terms of, look, your freshman year, man, you're just kind of like, man, this is amazing. I'm playing in the, for him, the Big Ten. For me, it was the ACC. Like, I can run down starters on each of the 9 of the other 8 teams. And, man, the ACC was loaded. I mean, it was Travis Best. It was Corey Alexander. It was Dwayne Simpkins. It was Jeff McGinnis. I mean,
Randolph
Childress, Tim Duncan, Bob Sura. Like, it's just you keep going every team. And so for me, I was, my preseason games were in the United Center against Illinois, at the Palace against Ray Allen and UConn, down in Honolulu. So it was a dream come true for me just to be on the floor, and I had earned starter minutes. I'm playing, like you said, I'm playing with Cherokee Parks. We were good at the start of the year. We started 9-2. I think we were ranked we were ranked 10th in the nation. Yeah. And then we start ACC play, lose to Clemson at home, go 9-3, and then coach goes out. And then it's like, whoa, what is, it's kind of like, well, what's about to happen? But at the time, you didn't know it was for the whole year. Like, you got to understand, like, in hindsight, you can see it, but as it's going on, you don't know if it's going to be a couple games. You know if it's going to be a week. But then it was kind of in flux. And so as, you're 18 years old and things are in flux at Duke, and you're just worried about the next game. Like, honestly, like, we were 9-3, like, dang, we lost to Clemson, but that was tough. All right, what's the next one? And you're just prepping. You got 1 or 2 days to prep for the next one. Mateen knows, like, you're not thinking about the big picture, like this thing's about to blow up. You're like, nah, we good. We're 9-3. We beat some good teams. We played really good teams. I got class tomorrow, I got class. I'm talking to this girl, I gotta check in with moms tomorrow. Like, I'm not concerned about the big picture about what we're supposed to do and what we have done. I'm going day to day, man, because this is all a lot for an 18-year-old on campus. So it wasn't until the end of the year where you reflected. And now looking back, like, I look at where we started, going 13-18 and 2-14 my freshman year, to where we ended my senior year going 16-0 and 37-2, and just that change of in 5 years and what we were able to bounce back from, and kind of every year we grew after that, I thought was a special accomplishment, and one that I was and our team was super proud of.
Man, you mentioned that your senior year team, and I'm not going to go into depth on that because we'll get to that at some point. But I just got chill bumps when you said that team, because you guys were loaded. Man, what a great team, man. I really, as a fan, enjoy watching you guys play. But here and there, that's a whole nother story. But let me ask you about that sophomore year. Because, okay, your freshman year, you go through, have a solid season, man. You now kind of learn how this college thing goes. I'm super excited to play next year, now. I'm ready to go show the world what I can do on this level. And and then you had the injury. So how challenging was that, mentally? Because, just to stay in tune mentally with being out, for your sophomore season.
Yeah, so you can probably imagine all of the success Duke had had. And everybody hated Duke, right? It wasn't just an ACC thing; it was a national thing. So people were loving us going 2-14 and getting knocked out and not being in any postseason play. People loved it, and they were just, as the saying goes, when somebody gets down, you keep burying them. You know how it is. Mateen, get down.
Yep.
We get them down 10. Let's put them down 20. We get them down 20. Let's put them down 30. Put your foot in their mouth and push them underground, and that's what they were doing. And they would be laughing at us walking off, and it's just things that you keep in the back of your mind. And so that whole summer training for me was that mindset. I went and played minor league baseball, and I'd have to show up at the field at 2:30 in the afternoon to get my extra BP in, and I'd be at the gym at 10:30 in the morning. I'd be like, nah, I got to get my work in. Like, I'm gonna get my work in. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna get some lunch, and then I'm at the field. Next day, I'm doing the same thing. I'm running my sprints wherever we're at. If I'm in Boise, Idaho, I'm running my sprint. I'm finding a field. I'm getting my sprints in. I'm getting my lift in. I'm getting my shots on this random outdoor court. I used to travel with an outdoor basketball on my minor league trips because I was going to keep getting my work in. Play USA basketball, hurt my knee, and I just don't recover in a way that gets me back on the floor. But the venom that was in me to play that year was so hard to sit on the sidelines. And look, we got better. We were 8-8. We ended up making the tournament. But I was like, man, I could help our team that much more, and I want revenge on all of these dudes, all of them. I want all of them. And so that was a whole lot. Now I had another summer to rehab off of that. And it was I just threw myself into the rehab. I had to, once I had my surgery, but it was hard. Like, you don't want to be, I didn't want to be a student. Like, I took pride, but I didn't have any release. I didn't have any outlet. All that venom that had been brought up, I couldn't put it out on anybody. So I had to wait a whole other year. So that was a incredibly tough season for me I didn't play basketball for 14 months, Mateen.
Wow.
14 months.
Wow.
Yeah. It was tough.
Well, they probably could have used you against Earl Boykins, Brian Tolbert in Eastern Michigan. I was actually at that game. I was a huge Duke fan at the time, so took off school. My mom drove me up to the game, and I watched. But I got to see. I think Ray Allen, UConn might have been the #1 seed, same region that year. So
yeah,
we got to see
I think so.
Not all was lost. Not all was lost. But
I think if we would have won that game, I think we were going to play them the next game.
Yeah, because it was 8.
Yeah,
you guys were 8-9. It was 8-9 game, and that would have. Yeah. That's exactly how it would have worked out for sure.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about training in the summers on Duke, and I was talking to Mateen off camera about this and getting his take from the Michigan State side too. And we both kind of had this question of what those pickup games were like. Did you play a lot of pickup ball? We always hear like the proximity between UNC and Duke in the summer and some of the pickup games that happen, not just between the UNC and Duke guys, but with the alumni coming back on campus and stuff like that. Were there any pickup games that stood out to you, or did you play a lot of pickup during that time with baseball going on, et cetera?
So I spent one summer on campus, obviously. The year that I hurt my knee, the summer I was on campus, but a lot of the pickup runs were preseason, postseason. They weren't necessarily in the summer per se, because you wouldn't have, a lot of us around at the same time. Summer school wasn't as popular then as it is now. Like, coaches like to keep those players on campus now if possible and get ahead in their studies. A couple guys would be on, but it wasn't as regular for every program as it is now. So, but I would say probably post freshman year, guys from Carolina would come over. And so you had Rashid, Stack, Touche, you had Dante Calabria. There were some guys that came back, even like, I think Johnny Dawkins was still in the league at that time. So he would come play when they got done. I mean, the runs were, and it wasn't even in Cameron. It was in Carr Gym, was, a little rec gym right across the way. It was like a sauna. It was a sweat box.
Which makes it better, right?
It was unbelievable. Donna Williams was there. I mean, they had their 6 guys. It was unbelievable. And we had all our guys. And like I said, like we were talented. We just didn't know how to close games. Like, we were in all of those 14 ACC losses or 18 losses. I'll bet you we got blown out of 2 games, 2 of them were Joe Smith buzzer beaters. You know, one of them was the Carolina game. One of them was a Randolph Childress buzzer beater. Like, we just got, I mean, they were heartbreaking losses. So we were a good team that just didn't know how to close out. And so I guess that makes us not a good team, but we're a talented team. Let me put it that way. We're a talented team. So the pickup runs was good, but I think the pickup run that I remember that stood out to me the most was Elton's freshman year, which was my junior year. We had a crop of G. Hill came back, Danny Ferrer was back, Late was back. We probably had, you know, guys like Thomas Hill were back. Probably had a good 8 to 10 pros that came back in with our team. And when I tell you nobody could guard Elton, and nobody could guard Elton, like he was getting a bucket anywhere. And I was like, whoa, this dude's giving it to pros right now. He ain't played a college game yet. I was like, this dude's about to be the truth.
Did he drill that baby in there like a rope? And all the camera crazies go bananas. What a combination. The A-man to the B-man. And they come up as A+.
Those runs, those 2 sets of runs were the ones that stood out for me in my years there.
Woo, man. And it's funny. I mean, he's just casually throwing out all these great names, you know, like I would have paid top dollar to watch those college basketball runs. But let me, and I got to say this too, our runs was a little different. Like the pros would come back and just cheat. I mean, they would cheat, man. Magic Johnson, he was done playing at the time, but he would just come back and cheat. He never lost. Steve Smith was a big cheater as well. Like, you know, we'll go to 5. And if they have the ball with a chance, like they got 4 points, and the ball is on their end, game over. They're not going back on the other side. They're not going across half court because they're going to cheat. So our games is all screwed up. But let me ask you about, you talked about that season. I mean, you're going like your junior year, senior year, because you guys were the heavily favored by far. I mean, when you just looked at it, you know, you guys are favored, man. Did you guys, what was the mindset going into that year? You know, was it just to show everybody we are the top dogs? Was there pressure on you? What was your mindset?
That's a good question. I was down at Duke, I guess it was about a month ago before they got started in the season, and went out to dinner with Chris Carrawell. We were just talking about the difference in mindsets between players and teams then and now, as I'm sure we talk about all the time. And it's just a different time, a different era. You know, it doesn't mean that we were better. It was just different. But the mindset of, it was interesting because freshman, sophomore, junior was, as you know, we're going to get up and go to the track. We're going to get the lifts in. We're going to run our sprints. We're going to run our long distances. Coach was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. He pulled me in because I was the captain of the team that year. He said, I want to do track work. I want to do sprints. I don't want to do stadium stairs that we've done. He said, we're going to play. I want you guys to just play, get to know each other on the court, but push each other. You hold them accountable for getting in shape on the court. But if you guys do that, you're going to have no stadium stairs. You're going to have no miles. You're not going to have any sprints. He said, you're going to lift and you're going to do your PD work. But he said, we're just going to play. So that's what we did. He's like, we have a chance to be really good, but to be really good, we got to be together. And so that was the difference in coach. He gave us a lot of autonomy in that. And I think it did help. But coach is a beast, man. Like, people don't understand. I was talking to EB the other day, I think over the summer. You got to go look back. Coach benched Elton 5 games into the season.
Oh, wow. Benched
him. We go up to Alaska, lose in the championship game up there in Cincinnati, and EB didn't play great. And so coming out of there, coach was like, Elton, you're not ready, man. I'm going to start Burgess in front of you. Benched him for like couple games, and it woke him up. I mean, shoot, what coach benches the projected player of the year? And that just it lit a fire under him, lit a fire under us. That Cincinnati game woke us up, and I think we won 34 straight or something, Mateen. And talking about the mindset, I don't remember one time thinking, how many games have we won in a row? It was, we just beat this team. All right, who's next? All right, we're going to beat that team. We're going to house them. All right, who's next? That's all it was who is next. And we had a really good mindset that year. Unfortunately, in that game, I think a lot of people were thinking forward on our team, unfortunately, but which is normal, right? A lot of them are like, dang, I'm about to be pros. You know, people are getting in their ear. They're like, yo, you're going to be a projected lottery pick. And it was hard for several guys that are hearing that to stay locked in a game that you better be locked in, because the target was on our back. But we still had a lot of young guys that were about to get drafted and make a lot of money. So we did not play our best game of the season down in St. Pete.
Let's take a little step back, because you two did play against each other in the Final Four before we get into the UConn game in '99. So you guys romped through the tournament in '99, and then you faced Michigan State in the Final Four, which is Mateen's team. And Mateen and I talked a little bit about the preparation, like how that '99 game prepared them in 2000 to make that bump and win. But I was just curious what the scouting report was on Mateen, and vice versa, what the scouting report was on Trajan from the other side now, hearing this maybe for the first time.
Well, we had played them earlier in the year, and Mateen, how was it? Probably like 6 weeks before, or I can't remember. When
it was early in the season.
Was it early?
Very early in the season. Maybe first 3 or 4 games.
First 3 or 4 games. So we played them early, and we got off to a hot start against them. I mean, we got up 15-20, thought the game was over. I wouldn't even say we thought the game was over, but we were like, okay, if we come out in the second half and we do the same thing, we'll be all right. Man, they turned it up, like boom. They turned up the intensity. They executed at a way different level. They were making shots. Mateen and Mo Pete started really firing up, and it made it a game. And so we knew going into that game, this was going to be physical. It wasn't going to be easy, because whatever happened with them, we knew now they were comfortable against us. We knew they weren't going to be scared. They might have been a little bit like, oh, we're playing this Duke team in the first half, but in the second half against us, they got their confidence, they got their swag. And we knew going into this, it was going to be a battle. We knew they were going to be physical. We knew they were going to be a much better team. We were going to get a better version of Michigan State in April than we did back in December. So, I tell you one thing, it was a bigger fight than I thought. I thought, if we play well, we'll put them away. I wouldn't say we put them away early, but we'll lead comfortably, man. But they made it tough the whole game. It was back and forth, and it took big shots by us late to pull that thing out.
And to piggyback on that, as far as our scouting report, it was like, good luck. I mean, you looked around, it was like, who do you stop? Like, they had so many weapons, man. And like you said, Elder Brand was a player of the year. And I mean, they had Corey Maggette, was young. Will Avery, he could create off the dribble. I mean, they had such a great team, man. And Trajan, I mean, it's like, you don't want to leave him, but hell, what did you do? Trying to help off on other guys. It was tough to beat them, and you just wanted to go out. I like to say you play a hope defense. You just hope they miss shots.
The scouting report on Mateen was keep him out of the paint, keep him out of transition, try to make him make shots over the top, and be aware when he's around you defensively, because he's going to get in you, and he ain't going to stop coming. And Coach K loved Mateen. He talked very, very highly of him. He said, look, this is the motor that revs this engine. But be aware of this dude, because he ain't going anywhere. So,
man. Okay, well, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, you didn't need to tell him that. You didn't need to tell him that.
Now it's going to be hard to deal with for the next few weeks.
And Trajan Langdon fouled. Pass to Hudson and one.
That's Brand from behind. Great job by Mateen Cleaves. Penetrates extremely well. Michigan State has everybody on that break, and they can run.
Langdon, long.
I always thought about this, because you guys had a tough game with UConn, and we can get into that. But I was thinking somewhat too, like, well, did Michigan State have a little bit to do with that, man? Because it just seemed like you guys were, and taking nothing away from UConn, played great. It just seemed like you guys were a little like running in quicksand at some points in that game.
I'm not going to say you helped us, because it was hard fought for 40 minutes. It was physical. It was hard fought. It was emotional, right? As well as I do. When you play an emotional game, a lot of people that don't play high-level sports don't understand that the emotional part is more taxing than the physical part, because you got to get over the big win, reset. And when you put yourself in these shoes, and then when you put UConn in theirs, they're now coming in with a target like, oh, no, we coming. Everybody thinks this thing is over. And we're kind of on the flip side trying to recover, everybody telling us we're great. Like, I was by far the oldest guy on the team. I could recenter and get ready, but I don't. You think, for me, it was like I went back 5 years. right? I was 13 and 18. My goal coming in as a freshman was I want to win a national championship. Now I have an opportunity to do it. Like, I'm locking in. I'm getting my sleep, right?
Yes.
But if you're a sophomore or you're a freshman, all you know is we went 32-4 the previous year. We dominated we were 15-1 in the ACC the previous year. So is that all you know? And then 16-0. So you're 31-1 in 2 years in the ACC. That's all you know. You're like, oh, we're going to keep doing this, or I'm about to go get paid. So I think, the juxtaposition of mindset is that kind of, I think, allowed some of the guys to relax instead of heighten their awareness when all of UConn, they took it to the next level. And I think we kind of were a little bit down. And so, yeah, I think there was a little bit of both sides. We were tired, but also we were kind of like, "Whew, man, we got through that. Let's take a relaxation breath." And there was no time for that. There was just no time. So,
yeah, that's very interesting. Okay, 99 game aside, I think looking at your career at Duke, you had like a very unique experience, a very unique 5 years there, because you went from the 13 and 18 freshman year, injury year, then bringing Duke back, ACC championships, win an ACC title, tournament title,
3 straight,
yeah, and then get to the Final Four, get to the national championship, don't win, but like, it's so unique because you were like the bridge. Your group there was like the bridge to get Duke back on top. So out of the Hill, Leitner, Hurley era, through the struggles, and then back on top where Duke is. But I always wonder, is there a pecking order in the brotherhood? Like, when you guys all get back together, is there a seat at the table for the national championships, a seat at the table for the Final Four guys, a seat at the table for the ACC guys? And then how does that all work when you guys get back together? And do people appreciate your bridge years there that got Duke back to where they needed to be?
Well, you walk into the camera and you see the 5 banners.
Sure.
It
hurts,
and then it hurts because you want there to be 6. Like, there should be 6.
Definitely.
And then over on the side are all the ACC banners and you get the Final Four flag or whatever. But so of course there is a pecking order. There's a difference. I think we would be, a lot of people that know basketball still say your Duke team was the best team ever. Right. You just came up short. But the way that we dominated college basketball that year, I think we won by 32 points a game on average. Like, I remember a game at UVA. I think this is the story that I tell most people when they say, "Did you ever feel it?" We're at UVA and I get taken out of the game with between 8 and 10 minutes left. And coach passed me. He's like, good game. You're done. I'm looking up. I'm done. Like, you got 8 minutes left. I got like 5 shots up. What do you mean I'm done? And I'm passing by, Quinn Snyder was a coach. And he's like, Trey, we're up 50. You're done. Woo. We were up 50 with like 8 minutes left at UVA. And that's when I didn't even know. Like, I had no idea. So, wow. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a mutual respect between us, our team, all the players. In terms of the bridge, I don't think people understand kind of what those 4 to 5 years really meant for the program. The coaches do. Coach K does.
Yeah,
He's
sure.
communicated that. Johnny Dawkins does. Tommy Amaker does. The coaching staff that were with us, they recognize what that was able to do for us going forward. It hasn't really been verbalized or communicated to me off campus, but like, we feel it, we know it, and we embrace it, and are proud of what we were able to do for the program.
Well, for the record, I helped Slam Magazine come up with the top 50 teams of all time a couple Marches ago, and I did put your Duke team in there as the 27th best team of all time. So you have that, and you gained 15 spots on Mateen's 2000 club, but don't tell him that.
No, listen, ain't no argument here, man. They were terrific. I know we gotta let you go. We can't keep you too much longer, but I do have to ask this, because when we go back to Michigan State, like the big dog on campus, if everybody's back, everybody kind of bows down to Magic Johnson. Of course, it ain't even a thing. For Duke, who is that? Who's that 1 or 2 guys that, when they come back, they kind of like, they're the big dogs on campus, and you got to kind of just take a back seat somewhat when they're on campus.
He doesn't act like that, but it's definitely G Hill. everything that he's done. You know, he's on the board now. His mother did a whole lot at Duke before, like what he was able to accomplish at Duke as a pro, and then even post career, just not only just as a basketball player, but also as an ambassador for the university and as a businessman. I think people just look up to him, like, you know, that's kind of, and he's very humble in how when he's on campus and he's moving around, he's talking to the freshman classes, he's talking to senior classes, he's talking to, you know, faculty here and there. So he's really trying to give back and do the right thing. So that's kind of the person. Other than that, it was probably late. Honestly, especially when I was in school and Lake came back on campus, man, it was like, yo, that is that dude. You know, when I was in school, like the things that he did in school, I'm like, yeah, Lake, like he was a monster on and off the court, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Before we let you go, we obviously know we appreciate your time, and we know that you have made a living in the NBA now. You're GM of the Pelicans. Last question is, coming out off of your playing career, your professional playing career from NBA to overseas, did you ever give any thought to going back? We see so many Duke players going back into the Duke coaching tree and under Coach K and all that stuff with Woj and Chris Carrawell. You talked about Nolan Smith and on Shire, all those guys. Did you ever give any consideration to going back and getting into the college game before you decided, you know, in the scout role and then on to the GM in the NBA?
Not really. I think there was a time period I might have been scouting with the Spurs when they had a change in the coaching staff. I think it was when Wojo left and Chris Collins left, and they were looking for replacements. Not that I got a call, but I got somebody kind of, you know, I think some people there asking, would I do it? I thought myself for a couple days, but man, Mateen knows this. I played pro for 12 years and 3 years in the L and 9 years overseas, and just the difference in play. I wanted to stay in that realm. It's what I knew. It's what I loved. It's what I was passionate about, trying to understand and learn and be really, really good at. And so for me, it didn't take too long. And I'm glad I'm here, because that college thing right now, I think, is difficult to navigate, man.
A different monster. Yeah.
It's just a different monster, and it's one that I wouldn't be able to understand, especially with my history and where I was at Duke and where Duke and all of college basketball is now. It's just in a different place. So I'm happy I made that decision to stay here in the pro game, and it's treated me well.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining and taking the time to talk to us. We know you're a busy man, and we really appreciate it all the time today.
One of the best shooters college basketball.
We didn't even say Alaskan Assassin on this pod. How did we let that go?
Yeah, it is. You just hit it now. No, this was a lot of fun, because I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Salute, brother.